Hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Krista White. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Crow Canyon, and we're joined today by James Restivo, our VP of Product Development. And we have a workshop for you on the overview of new NITRO features. Before we dive into it, I will go ahead and hand things over to James in just a moment. But before we do that, just as a reminder, this will be recorded. So if for any reason you're not able to attend or you want to, reference anything, this will be added to our YouTube channel as well as our website. And so you can find all of the recordings there. And this will also be a high-level overview of the new NITRO features. So if you do have questions as we're going through, go ahead and pop them in the question box. But also if it is something that's more specific, we can always follow up with you afterwards and get that answered for you if it's something very specific to your organization. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and introduce James. James, what do you have for us today?
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. Appreciate it. Yeah, just we got a few things we're going to show with the NITRO updates that we recently rolled out for June. There's a few cool new features I think you'll find useful. So I'll get to that in just a moment. I do want to share my screen so I can do that. So let me change myself to presenter. It looks like we have a few more stragglers coming in at the last second. So welcome. Thank you for joining. Okay. All right. So can you see my screen now, Krista?
Sure can.
All right, awesome, thanks. Great. So we released a couple new things that I wanted to highlight today in this workshop. One of them I think you'll find especially useful, especially when you have multiple people working in a system, updating items in a system. I think you'll get a lot of use out of this. And it's related to when someone makes a background update to a item in SharePoint. So I'll get right down to it and show you what it looks like, because I think this is a really great feature for you. So first I'll show you what it looks like, then I'll show you how to configure it. So what I have this same site that you're seeing, this permissions workshop, NITRO workshops. I have two different logins. So I have my kind of main Crow Canyon login over here, and I have my admin login over here. So yeah, they are both James Restivo, but they are different logins for all intents and purposes. And what I want to show you is what happens when person A over here is making some changes to, let's say, this facilities onboarding procedure document, and want to go in and edit some properties, maybe change some data in the description field. And in the meantime, this other user, it has the same idea, or maybe they're going to jump on it too, whatever the case may be. They're going to come in here and do the same thing, but maybe person A gets a little distracted, walks away, keeps it open, but person B goes ahead and making changes to the form. So they've made some changes to the form and they hit save. So what we have on this screen over here in the background is a check. Every 10 seconds or so, it's configurable, and there it is. So you get a big yellow message that says, hey, someone else updated this, and you can see who it is. Now, the nice thing about this is this will pop up, and I tested this with NITRO Workflows, and it'll show SharePoint app updated it, but it's NITRO Workflows, custom actions, or any user saving an item will go ahead and display this very apparent message that something was changed. And what happens without this check, what would happen is if I save this form, if I went ahead and hit save, it'll tell me there's a version conflict right there. And so any changes I made would be lost. But with the reload option, with this option, now I can see someone else made a change. There is going to be a version conflict. You can hit reload, and what will happen is you see what the other person changed. So now you can see what changes they made. Oh, they look good. I want to keep those changes. We'll go ahead and keep them. So you get two options here at the bottom that you can see: discard my changes and reload the item, or reload the item and keep the background changes. For the most part, because the item was already saved, we're prioritizing those other changes first. Because those items are changed, that's already basically set in stone in a sense, because you've committed the item to the SharePoint list. Those changes have been made, but you can see what changes they were. And if you want to go and change them, you can take a screenshot. You could somehow see that. If you want to preserve your changes, you can come in here, hit the X, come in, change what you want to change, and then save what you want to change, reload the item, then make your changes again. It's a little bit of a workaround, but you can do that where you can get your changes saved. But the big value add here is that you're seeing exactly what has happened, what the other person has changed, who changed it, when they changed it, so that when you get that version conflict, you're not left thinking, what the heck? Why did I get this? Why am I now have to re-entering all my data again? It just, it helps save that frustration. So you can see what your other person has entered, and then you can go and put your changes in there. So I'm going to go ahead, discard my changes and reload the item. All the changes I've done will be discarded, and it'll reload the item in the edit mode. So there you go. It puts you right back in edit mode. You can see the changes that were made by that other person. Now you've reloaded that version. Now, obviously it works the other way around. If I'm over on this screen here and I edit the item, and this person, let's say they've made some changes over here, changes the form and added some notes. Save that. You're gonna get that same message over here. So you can see it from both directions. You can see on both sides. So that's how but how do we configure that? How do we set that up so that we can see what that looks like? Well, you can do that through the advanced settings in NITRO Forms. So you can get to NITRO Forms, as you probably know, a couple different ways. You can go in through, there's a list settings button here, so I'm going to use that. So it opens up the library settings. We go into NITRO Forms. And just take a moment to open up. So if you have multiple forms, you'll get that pop-up dialog box. If you only have the one form, it'll just go straight to that one form. But either way, you want to get to the screen where it shows you the advanced settings. So you can do that. It's either going to be the pop-up right when you go into NITRO Forms, or you're going to hit the Manage Forms button up here in the ribbon, and then you can go to Advanced Settings. And on the bottom of this is where you have this background item update section. So this is where you can turn it on and off. And if you wanted to turn it on, you click that checkbox there. If you want to turn it off, you can just uncheck it. So you turn it on. We can allow overriding background update changes, so we can overwrite those background updates. I did not have that turned on for this one. I think that's actually new that they just entered based on my feedback from the initial look at this. I was concerned that people who are entering the form and getting the version conflict would lose their changes. And it looks like we did add this in. I didn't get a chance to test this before this workshop, but it does have that feature now where you can preserve your changes. So that's pretty cool. And then how often do you want to monitor for that? I recommend, fairly frequent. 10 seconds is going to be the shortest amount of time we can look, but it can extend that. It really depends on your process. It could be every minute, but I think 10 seconds makes the most sense because that way it's going to really pick up those changes as quick as you can, and give you the option to either discard those changes or preserve those changes, or rewrite those changes, whatever you need to do. So you got those options there. We hit OK. We do have to republish the form. So once you set your settings here, you want to save your changes, you want to do the background update. OK. We'll close that. We'll go ahead and publish. And I'll just say updated background change settings. Actually, this is going to be a live test here because I'm going to see if this actually made what kind of difference this makes in the form. So I'm just going to cancel. I had over here. I just canceled out my settings over here, and then I'm going to go back to this, refresh this. Sometimes it takes a couple of refreshes to get those changes from NITRO Forms to come through. So I'm just going to do that a couple times, and I'm going to open it up over here. And then I'm going to open up the same one over here. And we'll see what happens. See if that extra checkbox makes a difference. We're potentially preserving the changes that were made. All right, so I'm gonna make changes on this one here. Add some notes, and now I'm making another change here. Then we're gonna save that. So I saved this one, so I'll get the message over here. Again, it checks every 10 seconds, so it might take a little bit to pop up over there. Yep, there it goes. Okay, so that, almost the full 10 seconds, but there you go. And now if I hit reload, aha, look at that. Reload item and keep my changes. So yeah, that's brand new. That just came out with this latest, I think it's .11 release. So that's a new option where you can reload the item and keep your changes and potentially discard the other user's changes. So let me see what that does. For columns modified by you and also by background update, column values will be set as per your changes. For columns modified only by you and or only by background save, latest value will be set. So that makes sense. So it basically says if you've both changed the same item, your changes are going to be preserved versus the person in the background changes. So it gives you that person control. But you can see I didn't change this, so it accepts the changes that the other person made. So kind of a cool feature, I think, and I definitely love that we've added in that new feature where you can keep your changes as well. So it makes it even more powerful. So again, if you have any questions on how to set that up, let me know. We can review the video. And yeah, we can go through that. So that's one big thing we released, and the other thing I want to show you is related to these list views. And previously, you couldn't have these pictures coming through. If you had a picture link, I think it would just be the title or whatever you have as the text for the image. Now we've added in the Crow Canyon list view, the NITRO list view, the ability to see the actual picture that is on the item. And I created another view over here just to make that a little more apparent. So that's another new feature we released recently where you can now get the picture that's related on the actual list view itself. So I think that probably is there for SharePoint. And so we kind of trued up the functionality with the NITRO list view to give you that capability to see the picture in there. So that's another new change. Not too groundbreaking, but it is a change I think you might like to see. Another thing you'll notice is that up here, this NITRO list settings link. So previously you'd have to go and hit edit and get to the web part and then change the list settings. And it's a couple different steps in the process, a few clicks. We've actually made that easier now. So you can go directly and click NITRO, rather than going through this, hit edit web part, go over, configure settings. This will give you that list view to change around. So that's good there. But now we can do that directly from the list view. Which again, that's only going to be there for the people who have the managed website permissions. So if you don't have the managed website permissions, you don't have control. If you don't have access to this already, you're not going to get access to that. And that button will not be shown for users who don't have access to it. So be aware that it will show up. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit the other day. I was like, hey, what's this button? But it's there for people with managed web permissions and not for anyone else. So you'll see that button there as a new thing as well. And then really the only other thing I wanted to touch on real quick while I've got you on this workshop is a new function we've added into the column mappings, both in custom actions and in workflows. And this is a great one. It's for updating multi lookup columns, like multi-person or group columns, or if you have multiple item, selection in a lookup column. We have this append function. And so as you might imagine, what the append function will do is allow you to add new users without having to go through and normally what we'd have to do, the previous function would be save the lookup value content as a variable and then use that variable in a string concatenation function. But now we don't have to do that because now we have this append function. Or if you come in, you can click on append and you see you've got four different arguments here. And check my team, I didn't quite understand why we need all four of these, because I figured, okay, get the value, whatever the lookup value is, the lookup ID of the user, and then or the field, and then you have some kind of separator, which for a person or a group column would be a semicolon, excuse me. Different types of columns might have different types of separators, and then you have placeholders. So I wasn't quite sure why we had two placeholders, so I'm checking with my team on that, and I'll find out. But essentially, this is what you do, and you can see you can put additional append new things on here, so we can keep appending onto here. So the first argument would be whatever you can do a string. Actually, you can do a string too. That's very interesting, or multiple choice. So you can take all those values that are pre-selected, right? You have multiple checkboxes, all those values are selected, but you want to add on a new value. So then you can come in here and put your separator, and then put your placeholder, or it even could be a fixed value for that new entry, new choice field entry or new lookup field entry, but it retains all the previous entries while appending the new entry. So append, kind of obvious, but I think it's a really, it's a small thing, but it's a really, I think, helpful for a lot of different business functionalities that you might have across the organization and different processes that you're trying to build with the tool set. So I think it's a great value add. I'm actually going to be using it for some of our own internal processes shortly. I've got some updates to make to some internal workflows, but that's going to be a nice new feature for us to use. And that, I think, pretty much covers what's new with Nitro. And we're constantly releasing new things. A little, sometimes there's little bug fixes we'll put out there, but those are the kind of three or four main features I wanted to highlight on today's call. And so yeah, so it looks like there was one comment about updating with the table, so I'll take that to my team and I'll get back to you on that one, Mohammed, afterwards. But I'll follow up with you. But if you have any other questions or anyone else has anything that they want to see or something you're just curious about that you wanted to have shown, you can go ahead and pop that into either the questions box or chat or whatever the case may be, and we can get to it. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, I think that was it. Kind of short and sweet, and a few new things, and we'll keep it going for the next one. Krista, anything else you want to take a look at here?
I think that's everything for today on my end. I really appreciate you showing us all the new features. I always look forward to these workshops. And I know some months we've got a handful of things. Sometimes we've got a ton of things. So it's always just good to kind of keep up with the very latest. So appreciate you walking us through and sharing this with all of us today.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. I'll give you back the remainder of the hour, so you have some time to get caught up on emails. All right. All right. Thank
All
you
right.
everyone for joining, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone.